How he got here. Crooms spent his first 4 collegiate seasons carving out a name for himself at Western Michigan before finishing his eligibility at Minnesota, where he truly caught the watchful eye of the Cowboys scouting department. In 2023, he grabbed 28 catches for 376 yards after catching 115 passes for 1,766 yards and 12 touchdowns in 42 games at WMU, earning honors as a second-team All-MAC talent in 2022. His best game at Western Michigan occurred in 2021 when Crooms torched the University of Pittsburgh for 8 catches, 161 receiving yards and a touchdown during an upset win over the Panthers. What's next? A very real battle is what's next. Crooms is an undrafted free agent who flashed a time or two in the offseason program, but now, with training camp upon him, he'll be tasked with showing tremendous value on special teams to earn a role on the active roster that might later translate into opportunities on the offensive side of the ball. Considering how stacked the WR position is with talent going into 2024, and everyone not named CeeDee Lamb or Brandon Cooks clamoring for a shot at reps, Crooms will need to lean heavily on making plays for both John Bones Fassel and Mike McCarthy. Crooms is one of 3 rookie wide receivers on the Cowboys roster, along with fellow undrafted WR Cam Johnson, Northwestern, and 6th-round pick Ryan Flournoy. Did you know? Crooms earned all-conference honors during his time at Hillcrest High School in Illinois, an early nod to his ability on the field. Oftentimes, the offense and defense each take control of the show, and special teams fall by the wayside. This is how things used to go for the Dallas Cowboys until John Fassel arrived in 2020. Ever since then, we have seen all sorts of aggression and wild nature in the name of finding an edge. This is the way that the game should be played. With training camp, finally, almost upon us, we have been slowly looking at each and every position group on the roster and have finally reached the specialists. You can see/visit every discussion that we have had below. We will wrap up the series later this week with the coaching staff, but this will be the last time that any players are discussed. Some could say that we saved the best for last in the specialists. Whatever you want to say, it is time to begin. Here we go. Brandon Aubrey. NFC Wild Card Playoffs, Green Bay Packers v Dallas Cowboys. In doing the prep work for this series, it became apparent that the Cowboys haven't entered training camp with this level of certainty around the kicker position in some time, so we wrote about that in advance of talking about the specialists as a whole. Brandon Aubrey deserves that much love. Aubrey was so good and consistent last year that it became boring. He smashed the NFL record for most consecutive field goals to start a career and was easily named both a first-team All-Pro and Pro Bowler. Beyond how boringly successful his season was, the days of Dan Bailey are not so far in the rearview mirror that we have totally forgotten what it was like to have one of the more reliable kickers in the game. There is an argument to be made that this has been the most stable position on the roster over the last 13 or so years, with a few seasons of volatility in between Bailey and Aubrey. Will Brandon Aubrey completely replicate his consistency in 2024? Odds are low, just due to regression of the mean. Consider that he attempted 38 field goals last year and missed 2. These are elite numbers. Interestingly, regarding his misses, Aubrey seems to have a weird weak spot. Here are his numbers from each level of range. 20 to 29 yards, 9 for 9. 30 to 39 yards, 13 of 15. 40 to 49 yards, 4 of 4. 50 yards and beyond, 10 of 10. While we recall the days of Brett Maher and remember his ability to convert from downtown, what if I told you that he never hit 10 from beyond the arc in a single season? He went June 7, 2018, April 8, 2019, and 9/11, 2022. Seriously, we do not appreciate Brandon Aubrey enough. We will be dropping videos breaking down position groups on the Dallas Cowboys roster every Tuesday and Thursday for the next few weeks as we get closer and closer to training camp. Make sure to subscribe to the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel, which you can do right here, so you do not miss any of them. Bryan Anger. Dallas Cowboys v Los Angeles Chargers. Did you remember that Bryan Anger was also an All-Pro last year? It may have been as only a second-team selection, but the honor is impressive nonetheless. Anger may not lay dudes out on returns the way that his predecessor in Chris Jones was known to do from time to time, but he remains highly impressive in what will now be his 13th NFL season. On the subject of Anger's NFL origins, one of my favorite things is that he was the inspiration for Rich Eisen's famous "Punters Are People, Too" rant. In case you forgot, Anger was a third-round pick of the Jacksonville Jaguars, which obviously turned some heads. Eisen defended the move with that rallying cry, and the rest is history. These days life is pretty easy for Anger as the punter that plays alongside one of the better and more efficient offenses in the league. Last season actually saw a career low for Anger in terms of the number of punts that he booted in a season with 44. The low number helped him field his largest yards per punt at 51.4. The Eisen rant above includes a playful remark from him where he says that Anger is a weapon, which rang true for Dallas last season. Bryan recorded his fourth-best percentage of punts downed inside of the opposing 20-yard line. His 2022 season with Dallas ranks third here, and seasons with other teams take the top two spots. The point here is that Bryan Anger is a reliable part of the operation that the Cowboys field on a game-to-game basis. Like Brandon Aubrey, he provides an underrated contribution towards achieving the ultimate goal. Trent Sieg. NFL, November 19, Cowboys at Panthers. It is still difficult to not think of the great LP Ladouceur when talking about Dallas Cowboys long snappers, but Trent Sieg has done a fine job of carving his own place in history. In case you were unaware, Sieg has a pretty fun personality that he lets show up on social media. It is worth following him on Twitter if you have not done so already. At its core, the job of a long snapper is to remain invisible when it matters most, and that is during the actual football games. Through his first season in Dallas, it is safe to say that Sieg managed to do so, which is partly why, obviously, he is returning for another run with the group. Here's to another season of fun and laughter with on-field excellence. A note about the upcoming changes to the kickoff. This is not necessarily a point about anybody on the roster, but it is worth mentioning. We are on the precipice of uncovering a new world in the NFL relative to the kickoff. There is a new system at play and therefore new opportunities lurking. This could lead to player X or person Y developing and turning into a star in a way that was previously impossible. Could that be someone like C.J. Goodwin from a coverage standpoint? Maybe Kavonte Turpin is finally able to reach the end zone? Perhaps Deuce Vaughn has a high level of value? At this time, the answers are not known. But when we perform this exercise next year, it is highly likely that there is another name in this mix for this reason. Brandon Aiyuk requests trade, Cowboys must pay CeeDee Lamb before he follows suit. Cowboys star wide receiver CeeDee Lamb, while waiting for the contract extension he has so vocally requested, could take the same path Brandon Aiyuk just did, requesting to be traded. San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk has officially requested a trade from the club following an off-season of unsuccessful attempts to reach a contract extension, per NFL Network insider Mike Garafolo, on Tuesday. Aiyuk is scheduled to play on the fifth-year option as a former first-round pick, but after making second-team All-Pro, he wants to be paid higher, just like Lamb. Brandon Aiyuk is under contract for a little more than $14 million this season. The hashtag 49ers survived a trade request from Deebo Samuel. We'll see if they can find their way through this one from Aiyuk. About an hour ago, Mike Garafolo told the world on Twitter that Aiyuk had officially requested a trade after failing to reach an agreement. The 49ers were in a similar situation with Deebo Samuel not so long ago, but they made it work, so we will see how that goes. What will it take to get CeeDee Lamb extended? The more we see this news, the more I worry that CeeDee Lamb will not be a Dallas Cowboy long-term. Lamb is due close to $18 million in 2024 under the fifth-year option on his rookie deal, but is scheduled to hit free agency following the season. He could conceivably command at least $30 million per year on a new deal, with three other pass catchers: Minnesota Vikings Justin Jefferson, $35 million, Philadelphia Eagles A.J. Brown, $32 million, Detroit Lions Amon-Ra St. Brown, $30 million, eclipsing that mark. Lamb deserves nearly the same as the highest-paid guy at his position, if we are being honest. Justin Jefferson is the only other player that should be in the conversation. CD said in January he wanted to become the NFL's highest-paid receiver. Dak Prescott, CD Lamb have built quite the chemistry in a short amount of time. Cowboys championship window closing. Lamb is not expected to show up for training camp unless he has an extension in place. He already skipped minicamp, so that's not surprising. That cost him a $100,000 fine. Players who skip training camp are subject to a $50,000 fine for each day missed. This is do or die for the Dallas Cowboys. The championship window is closing for the Dallas Cowboys. If they continue to leave their best offensive player unsigned, and he does request a trade like Aiyuk, this team is done. Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott seem to be playing for their future in Dallas, and not getting a deal done with Lamb, even risking him demanding a trade, does not make sense right now. The only way it makes sense to trade CD Lamb would be if the Cowboys were ready to blow everything up and start from scratch. Don't follow suit, CD. If they believe Prescott can take them to the Super Bowl, they need to ensure he has a number one target. Conversely, if they believe Trey Lance can be a starting quarterback, his life becomes easier with CD Lamb wearing a star on his helmet. Either way you look at it, he should be signed long-term. Don't take any chances. The Cowboys already have enough to deal with. Micah Parsons can't stay off of X/Twitter, and folks are wondering if Prescott is going to be around after this season. The last thing they need is to have Lamb request a trade. If they even think about trading Lamb in lieu of getting a deal done, this front office will face tremendous backlash from much of their substantial fan base. Training camp is next week, and boy would it be nice to have CD Lamb in the building with the rest of the offense. I think about the Dez Bryant situation back in 2015. He tweeted he wouldn't show up without a new deal, which lit a fire under the front offices and he got signed on July 15 of that summer. He was in the building doing what he needed to do come time for training camp, and it's time now to do the same with CD Lamb.